A side, B side, what side are you on?
A side, B side, what side are you on? Hi, Adam. How you doing?
I am well, Brooke. I apologize for the ridiculously high pitched noise that just woke my dog. I got the look of death from the puppy after I'd made that sound. She's looking at me like, "What is happening? I was sound asleep. Why did you make that sound?" So I've made my dog mad at me. So things are looking downhill for the day.
Oh man. So I have to say I apologize because executive producer mom caught an error, and of course she called me on it, and so I would like to correct that. If you listen to episode 83, 84, and it sounded quite a bit similar, at least the A side of it sounded quite a bit similar to 83. That's because it was. I made a goof when uploading the audio, and I apologize. It is now fixed, and I know that there are quite a few people that did listen to 84, but it's at the very beginning. A side it starts off. If it's an even episode, that means the A side is first. So fortunately, you can go back, you can hear the very beginning. Just skip past our rambling in the very beginning of the episode, and you can listen to the A side, and it has been corrected. I apologize for that.
I just love the fact that like we had a bunch of people listen to it, and no one except your mom called us on it because everyone else was like, "Oh, look, Adam's telling the same story."
That's so Adam. That's so Adam.
And like problem we're having, we're like, have we heard this before? Yeah, probably. I don't know. He tells the same story like 5 times. I tell other people's stories as if they've happened to me, and then I've been telling a story like a bonfire, and I get done, and my buddy just looks at me and he goes, "I can't even be mad at you. That was my story. You told it better. I enjoyed it more. It happened to me though." And I was like, "I know, I'm sorry, man. It's just a good story."
It was just a great story I had to share.
It was perfect for the moment. He's like, "Yeah, but it's not your story." I'm like, "I know, I'm the worst." Sorry.
Oh, man. So this is hilarious.
Just it's like flattery, it's like a cover song,
That's right. It's true. That's true. So this week, well, like actually for the last several weeks, my mom has been saying to me, have you watched The Thing About Pam? Will you please watch The Thing About Pam? I need you to watch The Thing About Pam so that we can talk about it for like a month and a half now, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, This past weekend, I watched The Thing About Pam, and I'm like, why didn't I watch this before? Renee Zellweger completely embodies this woman, Pam Hupp. It's based on a true story of a woman that, and this is the premise, it's not a spoiler, she kills her quote unquote best friend and then sets her best friend's husband up to take the fall. Oh. True story. But that's like the icing on the cake of this woman.
So that's not even like, that's just part of it. That's just one ingredient.
Like a little sliver.
To the crazy soup.
Yeah, that's just like such a small piece of the cake. It's on Hulu, it's on NBC, and then of course I watch it on Hulu. And I mean, the full story of this woman, she was diabolical.
Well, I mean, and was this like a recent story? Did this take place? Like, when did this happen in reality?
So I want to say 2000.
Oh, so like modern day.
Yeah. This is modern day. So like 2011, I think it was. And then he takes, like I said, it's not a spoiler. He takes the rap. Then, we find out the truth. And so that's more modern. That's like within the last couple of years. I think she's.
Did he go to jail?
Yes.
Oh, so she did a good job.
Yes.
I shouldn't say good. Good's not the word. She did in
her mind, she
did a good job. And successful job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm telling you. That's just a small sliver of this woman. I mean, you would think that this was a made for TV movie, but this was a true story.
Yeah, I've seen like when I log into Hulu or Peacock because it's on NBC.
Yes.
Which one is it on?
It's NBC.
NBC, okay. because I was like, is it CBS or NBC? And you said
Oh,
yes.
it cut
And I
off
was
when you
like,
said it cut off, and all I heard you say it's on NBC. So I'm like, yes.
oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it's on NBC.
So when I log into Peacock to watch my weekend Premier League games and soccer games, because they have a bunch of the Premier League games on there, it's always popped up as like the first thing, and I see it and I'm like, I'm not like, I didn't know anything about it other than the picture. It's Renee Zellweger, but it's also like she looks different.
Yes, they did an amazing job of making her look like this woman.
She's made up to look like somebody, and that, because it doesn't look like her at first. Like, it threw me off. And then I'm like scrolling. I'm like, I gotta watch soccer.
Yeah, she's made up to look like Pam Hupp. So she is the main character of Pam in the series, The Thing About Pam. And I don't know like what tape she watched or if she went and visited Pam in person, but she completely embodies this woman. I mean, it's definitely worth a watch. I pulled a U where like my mom kept telling me, you gotta watch it, and I'm like, yeah, I gotta finish this.
Okay.
Let me finish that. I'm gonna finish this. And finally I had like caught up on everything, and then I was like, all right, I guess I'll watch it. And then now I'm like, I call my mom like, oh my gosh, can you believe this?
How could they?
I can't believe she did this and did that and got away with this. Yeah, it's crazy.
I have not watched much in the last week, besides my annual rewatch of White Collar. Or at this point, it's like every quarter I rewatch White Collar. It's been a lot of work and a lot of trying to get. I'm behind on movies. I have not seen the new Morbius. We've got the Doctor Strange movies coming out in like 3 weeks.
Oh yeah.
Moon Knight is amazing. It's holding up. I again have forced myself to not watch today, because we record on Wednesday's episode, until after we do the podcast and after I get some work done. So it's like the metaphorical carrot that's out there. Yeah, it's my treat at the end of the day. Like, oh, look at you. You cosplayed as a functioning adult today. You get to watch Moon Knight. Which is about a guy who can't sleep and has multiple personalities. And I feel very comfortable with all of that, which is probably a bad sign.
But I love the conversation we were having about it, like through text last week as I was watching it, and you had seen it, and you were like, I was like, man, this dude, I said something about his personalities, and you were like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not me anymore.
Yeah, well, like, I sometimes, in various, like, and I've said this to therapists in the past, I'm like, I just have like so many thoughts in my head that I wonder if I have like more than one personality in there. And I love theater, and I love putting like little parts of my personality in different roles. And I like that. And maybe I have multiple personality. And the therapists are always like, no, dude, you don't. Like, not even close. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm watching the show and I'm like, no, this is nah. I'm just weird. I do not have this disorder. It's amazing what Oscar Isaac can do, and how he's acting against himself in so many scenes, and you've such clearly defined people just in the way his face looks and his voice changes, and it's just like there's a shot in the second. They do
like a little part in his hair, like they just change like a curl direction, and you're like, that's Mark Spector there. Okay.
Yeah, well, and there's one shot, and I don't want to do any spoilers, but there's one where they're watching a video, and you see the character look into the camera, and in the eyes you can tell that this is one personality versus another. Like, I don't know how he does, like, his eyes change like that. It's that level of acting and creating a character. In the comic books there's more, and I'm very interested to see if that continues in the series as well. It's really hard to talk about without spoiling stuff.
Without spoiling it,
yeah. But if you have not watched it, it is definitely worth it. I don't know how Marvel keeps doing it, because I genuinely just keep liking the new series, even when I'm not expecting to. Like, I'll be like, oh well, WandaVision was so great, there's no way that anything's gonna be able to, like, that was such a unique thing. And then now we hear a year later and I'm like, oh, but the newest one, that's also really great. So we'll see. I'll probably, there'll be one at some point that I dislike, but not so far.
So far, I'm with you. Like I like when I first heard about WandaVision and I saw like the trailers and I was like, they're on a TV show? Are you kidding me? And then I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
like
that's gonna be lame. And I watched it and I was like, oh nope, that's good. And then, Falcon and Winter Soldier, I was like, I mean, yeah, okay, because it was more in line with the movie. So you're like, okay, but it showcased Winter Soldier's personality
so
so
much more.
much more.
Yeah.
And you like really got to know him and like his character. And then
And
with
Sam
Loki,
Wilson too. I
oh
mean,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And like his family dynamic, Sam Wilson's family dynamic, and
Yeah.
you don't really know much about that in the movies because they're side characters.
Yeah.
Um,
They're there for a little bit, but
and then like Loki was so different but so good, and Loki, of course you already like him from the movies, but then you do see a completely different side of him. So you're right. I
yeah.
mean, like each incarnation that they bring, you're like, how do they keep doing this?
Yeah. Like there's no way this one can't work. And it's like, okay, at this point, like the only thing I really haven't enjoyed from Marvel in the last, 5 years was the Eternals. And
Yes,
it wasn't bad,
it just
but
wasn't
it
up
just was
there.
yeah. I was like, there's nothing really like I didn't care about the characters at any point.
Yeah.
Which I mean that's a bad sign if we're supposed to be concerned about them existing and surviving. And I'm just kind of like, meh. Well, they're all real pretty.
I mean, I think the highlight of the Eternals really was the end credits.
Yeah. Well, that's the little like post credit scene where it feels like an entirely different type of movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have been like if that level of energy, like the movie just felt flat. It didn't have that Marvel like excitement and energy and a little bit of wit. It was just really, really pretty.
Yeah.
Like great visuals. Everybody's gorgeous in it, but I didn't really care about any of the characters. The bad guys didn't even seem that bad because we got no time to really care about them either. It was
Yeah.
yeah, that's probably the only one. And I've even, with my ADHD 3 TV setup at home, I've watched it 2 or 3 times since then. But it's the perfect thing to have on the third TV because I'll just check in every once in a while, like, oh, where in the story? Oh, okay. Angelina Jolie. How you doing? And then I'll move on.
You're like, oh yeah, that part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You're the reason we got a podcast. Thank you, Angelina.
Real quick, I have been watching The Ultimatum, which is by the same people that brought us Love is Blind.
Yes,
And
I've heard some interesting things about the show. I have
oh
not
my
watched it myself
gosh,
yet,
it's
but
such a train. Okay, so Nick and Vanessa Lachey also host this one as well.
mhm.
And I like watched it because I was like, well, okay, it's the same people that brought us Love is Blind. I'm loyal. I'm gonna watch. And the first episode or two, I was like, oh, this is so boring because you're like meeting the couples and I don't know. But it's not until like I think it was like the third episode, I was like, oh, the drama begins. And it is so bad, it's good. It's so bad, but I couldn't stop watching it.
Well, and I mean, I feel like anybody when we watch dating shows, it's kind of like watching it like when you're on the freeway and there's an accident, so everybody slows down. Like you don't want to be in the accident,
Right.
but you're really interested to see what happened there.
It's like, oh man, this is so bad. And like I've got these two characters, and I'm like, oh, these two are that meme, that gift that's like, I'm not the drama. Am I the drama?
Am I the drama? I
Am
think
I
I
the
might be the
drama? I
drama.
think I'm the drama. And it's like, oh, you two are definitely the drama, but I'm here for all of it.
Right.
And so today I have not finished it. I started it, but I have not finished it. It was the finale episode, and then there's the reunion episode that comes up next as well. So they both were releasing it.
Oh, so that they're releasing them not all at once.
So they released like I think the total was like 10. So they released the first 8, and then episode 9 is like the finale, and then 10 is the reunion.
Gotcha. It's interesting. Like we've talked about this before, how it feels like the pendulum is swinging back to, releasing things once a week as opposed to just, binge watching, all the episodes. Like
Yeah.
it seems like the Netflix model, even Netflix is starting to slow roll a little bit.
Yes. And I like my mom and I were talking about it, and she's like, just give me all my episodes. And I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
you are totally modern spoiled, because back in the day we had to wait
Yeah.
every week.
And until the advent of the VCR, you're like, you missed an episode. Well, you missed the episode.
Exactly.
You're not gonna catch that on DVR or TiVo. It's you have to try to get one of your friends to explain exactly what happened word for word.
And now it's just so like, I'll just jump on Hulu or Netflix or whatever. Netflix doesn't do the TV shows as much as they used to, because remember, Netflix used to do the TV shows too, and it was kind of like a competition between them and Hulu. But it feels like now they have focused on their own programming, except for a couple of shows, and it's mostly Hulu now that you get the TV programming.
Hulu or the IMDb TV app,
yes,
or Tubi, or like there's so many.
I do love Tubi.
Tubi is a big part of the A side today. So.
Oh, okay, all right. One last one that I started watching, The Girl from Plainville. I don't know if you know what that one is. It's Michelle Carter.
Yeah. The texting lady.
Yes.
Was like the first one to get charged with manslaughter for texts.
Yeah. So,
which was basically psychological warfare, but it was.
Yes, and it's very interesting because for such a young girl, she was very manipulative.
Yeah, you got to wonder, like, did we, as a society, kind of get ahead of this one? Would she have gone on to be something so much worse if you're that manipulative and that, well, I mean, I don't know, depraved, but like you care that little for human life at that age?
Yeah.
Oy.
Yeah. So I'm in the midst of that, and I think that's all for me.
Well, I have been watching a lot of sports because it is beginning of baseball season and the NBA playoffs are here. And we just had the March Madness tournament, and the soccer season in Europe is getting near the end. And I found myself watching the Timberwolves last night, and I inexplicably, being a 5'8", not extraordinarily athletic individual, fell in love with basketball at a really early age. And I was trying to figure out where that came from, because it wasn't something that like my parents played, or I didn't grow up in like Indiana where everybody has a basketball hoop. I was born in Nebraska and I moved to Minnesota. And I was trying to figure out where did my love for basketball come from? And like many things in my life, I was able to track it back to a movie that I think was the genesis of my love for basketball. Oh. And then once I started thinking about that, and of course it is not the movie that anyone will expect, because you think, oh, could it be like Hoosiers? Everybody loves Hoosiers, right? Something like that. No, I'm speaking, of course, about the 1985 classic starring Michael J. Fox, as most things in Adam's formative life did, Teen Wolf, starring Michael J. Fox, where he is a wimpy high schooler who is on the basketball team, but his team stinks. And it turns out that puberty wasn't the hardest thing for him. It was actually the fact that his family is descended from a group of werewolves, and he himself is a werewolf. And now in his high school years, he's turning into a werewolf. But instead of it being a horror movie, which Adam would definitely be scared of, the wolf comes out and turns him into an awesome basketball player.
I love this movie.
Which obviously that's exactly what would happen. It was such a huge success in 1985 that a sequel was made in 1987. And today, even though I love Teen Wolf and I have watched it probably 100 times in my life, and it made me love basketball, what we're going to talk about is the 1987 version, Teen Wolf 2. And that's TOO, as in Teen Wolf also. Mm-hmm. And it was the first movie appearance and the first movie role for Jason Bateman. He takes over the Michael J. Fox role. He plays his cousin, who is also cursed with werewolfism.
That's
with being
right.
a werewolf.
I was like, I couldn't remember, because I knew it wasn't the same. It wasn't Michael J. Fox, and I was like, he didn't play the. I was like, is he playing the same character? I forgot it was his cousin.
Yeah, Yeah, it's his cousin who's going to college at this point. And the movie from 1985 was such a hit. And Hollywood is known for doing sequels and kind of just rehashing things. But last night I watched Teen Wolf 2 on Tubi, which is one of the few places you can find it online. It's not available for free on any of the subscription services. You can rent it for $3.99 from Vudu and Amazon Prime, but I found it on Tubi with commercials, which is actually, sometimes it's nice to have commercials because you want to get up and get a drink, you want to go to the bathroom. So I think commercials are highly underrated. And I think many movies you could use them, especially a movie that is only 90 minutes long. And basically, Hollywood is known for sequels where they just kind of rehash the same idea. Mm-hmm. I feel like they just took the same script and kind of slightly put it in college, changed a couple of words. Instead of being on the basketball team, he's on the boxing team, which evidently colleges have boxing teams in the mid 80s. I'm sure it was the thing, but not something that I had remembered as a thing. So Jason Bateman, and it goes almost the exact same storyline. So nerdy guy suddenly finds out that he's a werewolf. The sports coach is, the basketball coach from high school is now the boxing coach at college, because obviously, but played by a different actor. Of the entire cast, only 2 members of the 1985 Teen Wolf cast made it onto the Teen Wolf 2 roster. And it was James Hampton, who played Harold Howard. It was Michael J. Fox's Scott Howard. He played his dad. And Cubby, who was one of the guys on the basketball team. He is evidently now on the boxing team at Hamilton College. So as you do, often people transition from being basketball players to being boxers, basketball coaches to being boxing coaches. There's a scene where he first becomes a werewolf that happens at a dance. And then he tries to hide it and goes to the boxing ring where he's losing, and suddenly, just as in the basketball game in the first one, he turns into the Teen Wolf and is suddenly able to defeat the other guy and becomes super popular. He leaves his brunette girlfriend for a blonde lady who is like hypersexualized, and then becomes a big jerk. John Astin, who best known as Gomez, Mr. Gomez from the what's his first name? What is
Gomez Adams?
Gomez Adams, from the Addams Family. Gomez Adams. Gomez is his first name, but also Sean Austin's father. So Samwise Gamgee and Rudy. Yeah, it's so weird because they don't really look anything alike. But they are. So he plays the dean of the college, who is so excited about the success that the boxing team is having, because obviously boxing teams can change your entire outlook at a college, that he allows the Teen Wolf to drive his car around. And because it's the mid 80s, there's an entirely unexpected musical number in the middle based on Do You Love Me Now That I Can Dance, where the Teen Wolf is at a party.
If there wasn't?
I know. I was trying to figure it out. Like, I think, where did this all start? I think the most successful one, the one that everybody knows, is Ferris Bueller in the parade scene.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that was like the first time, because it just felt like they were like, okay, now this is cool. So we're going to throw in the Teen Wolf also singing and dancing because that shows that he's the big guy on campus. And just like the 1985 version, he becomes too big for his britches and becomes a jerk, and nobody likes him. And then finally, he has to learn to humble himself. And the final climactic moments of both movies in 1985, it was the basketball game where they're in the state championship and Scott refuses to turn into a Teen Wolf. He's going to win it by himself as this skinny 5'5" point guard who, for some reason, Adam thought that meant that I should be a point guard and play basketball in high school, even though at no point was I able to turn into a super athletic Teen Wolf. I was just always Michael J. Fox, very skinny, and he's shooting free throws and they win, but he refused to turn into the Teen Wolf and they still win the game. And it turns out that it's okay. You can just be you. And he gets back together with the brunette and everything is great. Same thing, almost down to the minute. Like, I feel like I should have queued up both movies on two of my TVs and watched them at the same time. because it's not shot for shot remake, but the pacing is almost the exact same. Like the length is pretty much the same. It's the same exact story. They're just like in college and without Michael J. Fox. This time, it's the final boxing championship bout where he refuses to turn into a Teen Wolf and is getting just the smithereens beat out of him. And then finally sees his girlfriend say, I love you. Well, she actually mouths the words, I love you. When you're confused, because you're not sure, is she mouthing the words or can he not hear them because he's concussed, because he's been getting hit a lot? It's weird. He stands up and defeats the bad guy without turning into Teen Wolf, and then goes back to the brunette, leaves the blonde, and everything is the same. It is amazing that it wasn't a hit, since they used basically the same script. They just didn't have Michael J. Fox. It is one of the most horribly reviewed movies on Rotten Tomatoes. It has and I don't know how to say this word. It's either a tomato meter or a thermometer of 8%.
I would say tomato meter, since it's Rotten
Tomatoes. Yeah, I think tomato meter makes more sense. And then the audience score, and usually the audience score, people are, like, audiences are a little bit more forgiving than critics, gave it only an 18%. So It is not available on Amazon Prime. It is not available on any subscription service without paying, unless you go to Tubi and watch it with ads. And just like many of the A-sides in the last few months, I have now watched it, so you don't have to. But if you wish to, you would like to see how Jason Bateman started out in a very strange way. Oh, and like one of the best characters from the first one, Styles, they recast, and it's Boner from Growing Pains.
Yeah.
Kirk Cameron's friend is like, so the coolest guy who taught us all that surfing on top of a van was just about as cool as you could be is replaced by Boner in the second one. And that in and of itself is a microcosm for the movie. It's not nearly as good. It's hardly enjoyable. It tried to make boxing cool. And I think maybe they went boxing because it was the 80s and like Rocky was so big and boxing was at a different time. But it's boxing in college is not something that easily translates to modern day. So I would not recommend watching Teen Wolf 2. But if you want to watch the script, but just a much better version of it, check out the original Teen Wolf with Michael J. Fox, because everything that Michael J. Fox has made pretty much ever is always worth your time.
All right.
And that is the A-side.
Well, all right. I do remember vaguely. Because I remember when they first came out with it, I think before I saw it, I was like, they're making another one? And what are they going to do? We already know he's the Teen Wolf, but I forgot the Jason Bateman. They remade they made it into a series for MTV.
Yeah.
And it's serious.
It's very serious. It's like Riverdale and really intense and like, what's the Sparkly Vampires one? It's got like sort of like the
Twilight-ish.
Twilight, yeah. It's like everyone's taking things really intensely. Teen Wolf is not intense. Both of them have the scene where they're turning into the werewolf in the bathroom and like doing the whole transformation while they're talking to people outside the door. Those scenes, I swear, they just changed like 2 lines, and that's it. So it's amazing how the movie is but a carbon copy, and sequels are always that, but this one, it was like the carbon copy of the carbon copy. You got like it's like when you go in to get the soda and they don't have the name brand, so you get the store brand. And it kind of tastes like Coke. It's brownish and it's kind of bubbly.
Right.
That's about it. This is the store brand cola version of Teen Wolf.
Oh, man. All right. So that's the A-side.
That is the A-side. Go watch Teen Wolf. Don't watch Teen Wolf 2. Oh.
Well, my side has O's in it, a T and a O, but it's not. Yeah. This is the story of Jolly Jane Toppin. Adam, you'll be happy that she's not with us anymore, so you don't have to worry. No fears.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds horrible. Yeah, you'll be happy this person's dead.
So Jane Toppin was actually born Honora Kelly on March 31st of 1854. Honora was the daughter of Irish immigrants. Her mom, Bridget, unfortunately passed away when she was just an infant from tuberculosis. Her father, Peter, was a tailor, and he was known to be quite eccentric. Unfortunately, he was also an alcoholic, and he was known by his nickname, Kelly the Crack.
I'm sorry?
Kelly the Crack, like, because he's eccentric, a little crazy.
Oh,
you remember, they say crackpot as a crazy person. So
yes,
he's known as, Kelly
the Crack.
Crack, as in crackpot. So as the girls start to get older, Peter is he's like the town, everybody has like that town like person that everybody talks about.
Oh, you're like Dave?
Like Dave?
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna pretend we knew a guy named Dave.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Like Dave.
Oh, yeah. We're like, oh, like Dave.
Like,
like
Dave's at it again.
There's a guy in town here in the Twin Cities. I don't know if he's still around, but he literally would dress like Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean, and he ran for multiple government offices as Captain Jack Sparrow, because that was his legal name. So that was the thing.
Okay, yeah. So just like that. So just like Captain Jack Sparrow there, Peter was quite eccentric.
He did not get elected, just for posterity. He did not get elected. We only elect wrestlers in Minnesota, not pirates.
Jesse the Body.
Well, and comedians, as we had Al Franken.
Al Franken. Yep. So of course he's like the subject of a bunch of talk. He's, people are spilling the tea left and right about Peter Kelly because of his eccentricities. He finally became so eccentric, he drove himself crazy, and he ended up sewing his own eyelids shut. Again, he's a tailor, so he has the tools.
Okay, I can see how you get one done, but like you're just doing the second one by feel?
I guess so, which is like,
you know what you're doing.
Kind of like props that you could do something like that, but at the same time, come on, man.
Yeah, that's like a horror movie.
Yeah, basically. So it's at this point that he's put into an insane asylum, and his daughters are, they're taken, and they briefly live with his mom. But the two youngest are put into an orphanage, the Boston Female Asylum. It was an orphanage for female children. He never sees them again.
Because his eyes are shut inside.
I meant like never was around them again, but yes, he would not ever see them again because his eyes were sewn shut too. Yeah. So documents.
We'll edit that out in post.
No, I'm leaving that in. So documents from the asylum say that the girls were rescued from a very miserable home. There's not much known about their time at the Boston Female Asylum, but once they were older, Delia, she became a sex worker. She was forced into it because she had no means of money.
Support,
finances.
Yeah. Income, safety.
Yes. And their older sister, Nellie, was committed to an asylum as well. In November of 1862, this was about a little less than 2 years after being given up by her dad, Honora Kelly was placed into the home of Abner and Ann Toppin of Lowell, Massachusetts, as an indentured servant. The Toppins never actually adopted Honora, but she did end up taking on their last name. So she became Honora Toppin, but then she decides to change her first name as well, becoming Jane. The Toppin family already had a daughter named Elizabeth, and Elizabeth and Honora, now Jane, were on very good terms. So Jane did really, really well as a student, and she was kind of seen as normal, quote unquote normal, until she had a fiance that left her. That kind of set her into a tailspin. She was eventually freed of her indentured service duties when she was 18 years old, and she was given $50. And of course, they're like, okay, you're free to go. But she decided to stick around. She stayed with the family until Anne passed away and Elizabeth left to get married. In 1885, Jane begins training to become a nurse at Cambridge Hospital. She was described as brilliant and terrible. She was really well liked at the hospital. They said she was bright, she was friendly, and that's where she gets her nickname, Jolly Jane, because she was just always so bright and friendly. She was very cheerful, and her patients loved her, but she ended up becoming a little bit too close to her patients. She seemed to have favorites. And the ones that seemed to be her favorites were often the elderly.
Okay. All right. Nothing wrong with that. They tell good stories, often have candy.
Right? I mean, the butterscotches, man.
Werther's original.
Oh, yes, please. So she would end up falsifying medical records to keep them longer in the hospital so she could get to know them more.
That's creepy.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Oh, wait, that's not even it. She would also dose her elderly patients with opium to see how they would respond. And then she would miraculously nurse them back to health.
And as we've often seen with many of our the B-sides over the years, women tend to use poison as one of their main ways of killing when they're the serial killer type.
Yes. Jane later admits that she would lay in bed with her patients while she administered the drugs, and she would hold them as well they died. She loved them to death, literally. Yeah. Not sick at all.
Nope, that's normal.
So during her residency, she used her patients as guinea pigs, and like I said, she'd administer morphine and atropine. She also altered their prescribed dosages just to mess with their nervous systems.
Just experimenting on people. What's going to happen to Edith when I do this?
Jane also, after her patients died, she became quite obsessed with autopsies.
Keeping the experimentation vibe going, evidently.
I guess so. So it was recommended that she move on to the very prestigious Massachusetts General Hospital in 1889. And while she was there, she claimed several victims. She ended up being fired, and then she returned to Cambridge, but she was soon dismissed from Cambridge because she was known to administer opiates very recklessly without abandon. So from there,
just getting everybody hopped up.
She was pulling like an Oprah. You get an opiate, you get an opiate, you get an opiate. Yeah. So after she's let go from Cambridge yet again, she becomes a private nurse, where it didn't go very well, obviously, because we're talking about her.
I was going to say, depending on your point of view, I think I'm sure she thought it went smashing.
Oh, that's true. That's true. So one of her first victims is her landlord in 1895. His name is Israel Dunham. Not only did she take out Israel, she took out Israel's wife. In 1899, she killed her foster sister, Elizabeth, with a dose of strychnine. Not only that, not only did she take out her foster sister, she tried to seduce her sister's husband.
Interesting.
Yeah, she tried several times to comfort Elizabeth's grieving husband to get him to be with her, but her attempts to seduce him were denied.
Oof, that's gotta be rough.
I mean, but the gall, the audacity.
You feel like there was a plan in place here. Like she clearly wanted the foster sister out of the way so she could have the man.
Yeah, but
don't think it's going to end well for the dude.
Was it that, or was it just like I'm going to see if I can now take you?
That's a good question. I don't know.
In 1901, Jane moves in with Eldon Davis and his family in Catamet, and she is there to take care of him after the death of his wife Maddie, who, well, Jane took out. Maddie was actually an old friend of Jane's, but I mean, who cares about friendship when you're willing to kill your foster sister, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty much just all bets are off at this point.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So she moves in and she begins her duty as a nurse. And then, after a few months, well, guess what? Alden dies. Then his sister
Shocking.
Edna dies. And two of his daughters, Minnie and Guinevere, die.
So like the nurse moves in and people who aren't sick are dying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. So after this, it's Minnie's husband that demands a toxicology report. It's like, look, something is happening. She was fine. What's going on?
People are just dying left and right here.
So the report found that Minnie had been poisoned with lethal doses of morphine. Local authorities are then put on assignment to watch Jane. She's arrested on October 21st of 1901 for murder. After her arrest, she ends up confessing. It's like, all right, yeah, you got me.
Yeah,
She
I've been doing it.
Do you know how many murders she confessed to?
Oh my God. So I've been trying to do a running tally and I think we're at like 8 or 9 mentioned.
Okay, so mentioned, so, we've got her landlord, his wife, we've got her foster sister, we've got Alden, his wife that she moved into the family after she died to take care of, his sister, and 2 daughters. Plus a couple of patients. So let's say 11, right? We'll say 11.
11 mentioned, so I'm saying there's at least 20. She confesses to 20.
She confessed to 31 murders.
Dang.
Right. Up until this point, there was only about 11 that they could pin to her. 31.
You wonder if she was just waiting to get caught so she could tell everybody. Like,
right?
Now I'm caught. Now I can brag about what I've done.
So after her trial, one of the New York Journal printed what was supposed to be a confession that she had made to her attorney, claiming that she, even though she'd already killed 31 people, really wanted to kill more if she'd had the chance.
Yeah, it was just a timing thing. It had a little more time.
She was hoping that the jury would find her sane so that maybe she'd eventually have a chance at being released. She even insisted on her own sanity in court, claiming she could not be insane if she knew what she was doing was wrong. Nonetheless, she was declared insane and she was committed.
So she argued, you can't find me insane because I knew what I was doing was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you arguing for that?
Because she was thinking she might get out. Like if they didn't commit her to an insane asylum, she knew she'd be there for life. But if they just found her guilty of murder, she might possibly be able to get out of prison.
Okay. So there was a method to the madness.
She's not dumb by any means. On June 23rd of 1902 in the Barnstable Courthouse, she's found not guilty, but by reason of insanity, and she's committed for life to the Taunton Insane Hospital. So exactly what she knew was going to happen, or what she was fighting against.
Which, I mean, the fact that she knew that, I don't know. It feels like maybe she wasn't insane. She was just real messed up.
She might have been, because she told authorities that she would receive a sexual thrill out of torturing her patients. She said that being able to she basically had a God complex. Being able to adjust their medicines in order to bring them back to life or kill them gave her a sort of pleasure.
Yeah.
So, and maybe lying next to them while they died added to that sexual thrill. I don't know.
That's crazy.
Jane Toppin died August 38th of 1938, at the age of 84. She was remembered by some at the hospital as the quiet old lady, but some people that had been there years prior said that they remembered her saying things like, "Get some morphine. We'll go out into the ward. You and I will have a lot of fun seeing them die."
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's something you should report to, I don't know, anyone.
Right. But I guess where are they going to put her? I mean, she's already in the insane asylum, right?
Oh, right. When she was in the insane asylum, she said that. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Not when she was the nurse. I misheard. I was like, her coworkers remember her talking about killing people, but didn't tell anyone. No, this was after that.
Yeah, this was
Okay,
after that.
makes much more sense.
There's an article in the Hoosier State Chronicles that was published shortly after her arrest that she reported she would actually fondle her victims as they died, and she'd attempt to see the inner workings of their souls through their eyes.
That's messed up.
Yeah. She's considered the type of serial killer that's called an angel of mercy. It's a person who takes on that caretaker role and then attacks the vulnerable, those that are dependent on them. It's possible that she was motivated by jealousy in the case of murder of her foster sister, and maybe, like you mentioned, she wanted her husband. But
maybe she was just evil.
Maybe she was just evil. Like in the case of the Davis family, was it personal? Because she was friends with Maddie and she killed Maddie and then she kills the family. We don't know, but there was just something in her head that was wrong. And of course, like we talked about, she used poison for her murder. She reportedly poisoned a housekeeper just enough so that she appeared drunk in order to steal her job and kill the family. She even poisoned herself to evoke the sympathy of the men who courted her. She was a real piece of work.
Yeah. Holy cow. I mean, I can't imagine that it turned out well for the men that were courting her.
Yeah, seriously. They're probably part of that 31.
31.
Yeah. There's a book about Jane and her murders. It's called Fatal: The Poisonous Life of a Female Serial Killer, and it's by Harold Schechter. And there you go. That is the very troubling story of Jolly Jane.
And you're right. I'm quite glad she's not hanging out in a mental hospital in Massachusetts, because I used to live in Massachusetts. I once performed at a mental hospital, and I was my bride. Like I had to look it up to make sure that wasn't the same place she went, because I was getting a little too close to home.
She was long gone before you got there.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's the story of Jolly Jane. All right, take it away, Adam.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. My brain was still thinking about doing barefoot in the park for a group of mental patients. It was it's a weird time, but one of the best performances we ever did. Nicely. The best compliment I ever received was the nurses came up and said some of the folks didn't need their medication at intermission because they were so engaged in the show. And I was like, thanks. Theater is the new crack. If you want to support the show, you can go to our website, asidebside.podcast.square.site. Once you're there, you can find us on all of your favorite podcast platforms, whether that's Stitcher, Spotify. We've got a YouTube channel. You can find us on the Apple Music stuff on your iTunes. You could also, if you want to support the show, we've got a bunch of merch on there. It is getting near summer, so we still have hoodies and blankets and things if you want to stay warm in the chilly months. Probably about July, the Speedo and Thong collection will be out, so keep an eye out for that. If you want to support Brooke, who has to go through and edit all the things that Adam says that are true, you can go to buyusacopy.com and type in A-Side B-Side Podcast. Because she's going to need a lot of coffee because Adam was on a bit of a mood today, so there's a lot to edit. And please like, share. Every Friday we get a new episode that comes out. If you want to share that with your friends or just like go into a public place and put your boombox down and blast it, that is totally allowed. We encourage it, in fact. Yeah, and you just like hold it above your head, and it'll be like the A-Side B-Side Podcast. People will be like, "What are you doing?" It's about true crime and music. Thank you so much for listening to the show, and I apologize to all of those who thought I was just repeating myself.
I am so sorry. That's so my fault. I apologize.
What I'm a little more concerned about is I know many people who listen to this podcast who could have just reached out and checked if I was okay if they were remotely concerned that I was repeating myself week to week, and the fact that no one did probably is not a great sign for Adam. People are like, oh, Adam's repeating himself again. Like I have already turned into the senile old guy in the corner telling the same story 2 days in a row. So it's a little scary. I'm gonna have to go take some vitamin D and try to get my memory back. It's echinacea, right? It's good for the memory.
Yes. No, it's not echinacea. It's obviously I don't take it.
Euthanasia?
No. Echinacea is good when you're sick.
I don't know. I got these 5,000 milligram pills of vitamin D that I then was told I should not take every day because it could cause a backup. It would be very bad. So, but I'm feeling great.
Ginkgo biloba.
Ginkgo biloba, which is also, I think, a coffee shop down the street.
Oh my gosh. All right.
We have fun.
Yes. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Brooke. Talk to you later.